There was a time when trusting someone felt like giving them too much power. Your soulmate learned to be careful with their heart, not because they did not believe in love, because somewhere along the way, love became associated with uncertainty. They learned that promises could change, people could become distant, words could sound sincere one day and feel empty another. So they created a private rule for themselves. Never trust too quickly. Never reveal everything. Never become too dependent on someone's presence. At first, this rule protected them. Then slowly, it began limiting them. They became so focused on avoiding disappointment that they forgot something important. A life completely protected from emotional risk can also become a life without emotional depth. Your soulmate is beginning to understand this now. The realization did not arrive suddenly. It grew through small experiences. Someone kept a promise they had almost forgotten about. Someone listened without interrupting. Someone gave them space without becoming distant. Someone showed consistency without demanding anything in return. These ordinary moments began challenging an old belief. Maybe trust does not always have to be earned through one enormous gesture. Maybe it can grow through hundreds of small ones. That idea changed something inside them. They started observing people differently. Instead of immediately asking, "How could this person hurt me?" they began asking, "What is this person actually showing me?" That was a major emotional shift. Fear had always asked them to predict the worst. Wisdom asked them to observe the present. They began realizing that not every person deserved the suspicion created by someone else's mistakes. Not every silence meant rejection. Not every delay meant disinterest. Not every disagreement meant abandonment. Their mind was slowly learning to stop turning uncertainty into a negative conclusion. This was especially important when they thought about love. For years, they believed that opening their heart meant losing control. Now they were learning that vulnerability does not remove control. It simply requires honesty. You can care about someone and still have boundaries. You can trust someone and still remain independent. You can love someone without making them responsible for your entire emotional world. That balance gave them a new sense of freedom. And naturally, your connection came into their thoughts. They remembered how different trust had felt around you. There may have been moments when they did not fully understand what they were feeling. There may have been times when they became uncertain or pulled back. But beneath that uncertainty was something they could now recognize. They felt emotionally seen. That feeling had frightened them before. Now they understood why. Being seen meant being vulnerable, and vulnerability required trust. At that time, they were still learning how to give it. Now they are beginning to realize that your connection did not necessarily demand that they become someone different. It simply invited them to be more honest. That distinction matters, because healthy love does not force trust. It creates conditions where trust can naturally grow. A conversation happens, then another. A promise is kept. A boundary is respected. A difficult moment is handled with patience. Over time, the heart starts saying, "Maybe I am safe here." Your soulmate is beginning to understand that process. They no longer expect trust to appear instantly. They are willing to let it develop. They are also learning that trust is not only about believing another person. It is about trusting themselves, trusting their ability to recognize unhealthy behavior, trusting their ability to speak when something feels wrong, trusting themselves enough to walk away from what does not respect them. This is perhaps the biggest transformation. They no longer believe that being cautious requires being closed. They can remain aware without becoming emotionally unavailable. They can protect their peace without building walls around their entire heart. That new balance is changing the way they approach relationships. They are becoming slower to judge, but quicker to notice patterns. More open, but still grounded. More affectionate, but not desperate. And that emotional balance makes love feel less frightening. It also changes the way they remember you. They are no longer asking whether the connection was perfect. They are asking what it made possible inside them. Perhaps it showed them that trust could feel peaceful. Perhaps it showed them that emotional closeness did not always have to come with pressure. Perhaps it revealed that love could exist alongside freedom. These memories now carry a different kind of meaning. They are not simply reminders of what happened. They are reminders of what your soulmate is capable of feeling when fear is not making every decision. And that realization is becoming increasingly important, because the heart cannot build something new while constantly expecting the past to repeat itself. At some point, a person has to acknowledge what happened before, learn from it, and then give the present permission to be different. Your soulmate is approaching that point now. They are not forgetting their lessons. They are finally separating those lessons from the fear attached to them. And that may be the beginning of their ability to trust love again. As your soulmate continued learning what trust actually meant, another realization slowly began changing the way they understood love. They had spent years believing that trust was something another person had to earn. Now they were discovering that trust also involved something much more personal, the courage to remain open while still respecting yourself. That difference mattered. They no longer wanted to hand their heart to someone without thought, but they also did not want to keep their heart locked away simply because someone in the past had mishandled it. They were finally learning the middle ground. Observe, communicate, take your time, and allow people to reveal themselves through consistency. This approach brought them a surprising amount of peace. They no longer felt pressured to decide everything immediately. They could simply experience a connection and let time provide the answers. That was new for them. Previously, uncertainty had made them anxious. Now, uncertainty simply meant there was more to discover. This change affected the way they communicated. When something confused them, they became more willing to ask instead of assuming. When they felt hurt, they became more willing to explain instead of disappearing. When they cared, they became less afraid of showing it. These may seem like small changes. For your soulmate, they represented a completely different emotional identity. They were becoming someone who could remain present even when their heart felt vulnerable, and that brought them back to the thought of you. They remembered how certain moments between you had felt unusually natural. There was no need to force conversation, no need to constantly impress each other, no need to pretend everything was perfect. There was simply an emotional ease. They did not fully understand its importance at the time. Now they did. Sometimes the safest connections are not the ones where fear completely disappears. They are the ones where you feel safe enough to admit that you are afraid. That is the kind of emotional environment your soulmate is beginning to value. They want love where both people can say, "I am scared." And here, "That's okay. We can talk about it." They want a connection where vulnerability does not become ammunition later, where honesty does not lead to punishment, where mistakes can be discussed without immediately becoming reasons to abandon one another. This new understanding has also changed their relationship with their own past. They no longer feel ashamed of the walls they once built. Those walls served a purpose. They helped them survive emotional experiences they did not know how to process. But something can protect you in one chapter and restrict you in another. Your soulmate is finally recognizing that the walls are not being destroyed overnight. They are simply opening a few windows, letting fresh experiences enter, allowing themselves to discover that not every emotional situation carries the same danger. This is how trust is returning, quietly, without promises about the future, without dramatic declarations, through evidence, through experience, through the repeated discovery that honesty can be met with kindness, that affection can be consistent, that someone can care without trying to control. And somewhere within this process, their feelings toward love are becoming softer. They no longer want a relationship that constantly keeps them uncertain. They want something where trust grows naturally through everyday life. A conversation before sleep, a thoughtful message during a busy day, a person remembering something that mattered, someone asking how they truly feel, someone staying respectful even during disagreement. These ordinary things now mean more to them than grand romantic gestures, because grand gestures can happen once. Trust is built repeatedly, and perhaps that is what your soulmate is finally ready to understand. Love is not proven in one perfect moment. It is built through countless small decisions. Choosing honesty, choosing respect, choosing patience, choosing to communicate, choosing to listen, choosing not to punish someone for being vulnerable. That kind of love feels different. It does not create constant anxiety. It creates room to breathe. And when they imagine that kind of connection, your memory sometimes appears naturally, not as an obsession, not as an unanswered question, as a reminder of how meaningful emotional comfort can be, a reminder that they have experienced a connection where their heart felt understood, a reminder that perhaps they were more capable of deep affection than they once believed. The biggest difference now is that they are no longer waiting for someone else to make them fearless. They understand that courage must begin inside them. No person can guarantee that they will never be disappointed. No relationship can remove every uncertainty. No promise can eliminate every possibility of change. But they can choose how they respond. They can choose to remain honest. They can choose to communicate. They can choose people based on their actions rather than their potential. And they can choose not to punish the present for what happened in the past. That final lesson has become especially important because your soulmate now understands that love deserves to be experienced as it is, not as it was. Every new connection deserves the chance to reveal its own story, and every meaningful feeling deserves to be understood. Before fear decides what it means, this does not mean they will ignore red flags. It means they will no longer invent red flags, simply because uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. That is emotional maturity, knowing when to protect yourself, and knowing when protection has become avoidance, knowing when to step back, and knowing when stepping back is simply fear wearing the disguise of wisdom. Your soulmate is becoming better at telling the difference, and perhaps that is why their heart feels more peaceful now. They no longer need to know exactly where everything is going. They simply want to experience what is real. If love appears, they want to meet it honestly. If a meaningful connection returns, they want to approach it without carrying unnecessary suspicion. And if your paths cross again, they want to be able to look at you without the old defenses controlling their response. They want to be present. They want to listen. They want to speak honestly. They want to allow affection to exist without immediately questioning whether it is safe to feel it. That is the quiet transformation happening within them. They are not becoming someone who trusts everyone. They are becoming someone who understands that trust should be given thoughtfully, but not withheld from everything. And maybe the most beautiful part of this journey is that they are finally discovering something they once forgot. A heart can be careful and still be loving. A person can have boundaries and still be vulnerable. Someone can remember the past without living inside it, and love can be approached with both wisdom and hope. Your soulmate is slowly learning all of this, not because someone forced them to change, because life finally showed them that a permanently guarded heart can never fully experience the warmth it secretly longs for. And now, they are willing to open the door, not completely, not blindly, just enough to let something genuine have a chance.